Well, it's the most difficult part now, the speech after the lunch break. All the blood is in the stomach and everybody's getting a little bit tired. So I hope to wake you up once in a while a little bit. I brought some videos for that, especially for that reason. And yeah, as you are talking, or you talked a lot this morning already, I heard about competitors on the market, etc. As you can imagine, motorsport is all about competition. When we start, we think we are alone, we are the best in the world, the best driver, and then suddenly we realize, oh, it's first of all not only all the other competitors in the races, which we have to be, whom we have to beat, but also at first our teammate, for example, and not only him or her. So I know a lot about competition. I did that 31 years to summarize it. I always say I drove everything between 4 and 6 wheels. The 6 comes from the truck racing, of course. So what we would talk about, or what I want to talk about, is competition in a complex working world. You can imagine that our world, especially in automobile and in racing, is a very quick world. That doesn't mean only we are quick on the racetracks. All the developments go so quickly. One season you race, you already develop for the next year and for the next season, with new regulations, adapt to them, and it's always pushing and attack. That's the only thing we know in the motorsport world. And the real working world is adapting to that speed of change, as we all realize in our daily work and our daily life. So he told you I'm a Mercedes person. Sorry for that. So let me start a little bit with the first automobile we had, and it was in fact a Benz. Why I'm doing it, leading you a little bit to the history of motorsport, just to give you an impression of how competitive it was from the very, very, very beginning, how smart the ideas have already been from the beginning, and how quick the developments were. I did choose this picture not only to show you the first motorwagen ever, which was built close to Stuttgart in 1885, but also to tell you the story about Bertha Benz. The Americans, or other, in Germany, everybody knows Bertha Benz because for us she was the first marketing woman in motorsport, or in the automobile industry, because she, not her husband, who built the car, was the first person to drive this car. And the competition was the horse. Nobody believed in this stinking monster. And yep, I don't know what that is, in this stinking monster. So, but she drove it, and she showed that it's possible to drive this car on a longer way. She did a long turn. She had to take petroleum at the pharmacies. She had to be towed by horses up hills when it was too steep. So it really showed that it was possible to really manage to drive with this car. Unfortunately, I met Jutta Benz, the only Benz still living, and she told me after that first ride, Bertha never drove again. That, in fact, was a little bit disappointing from the female side of the automobile history. Another hero of mine is Claire Stinnes. In fact, she was the first human being surrounding the world in an automobile, or in a car, let's say car. And it took her 2.5 years. She was with a bunch of men, mechanics, everything. She had to face very difficult situations. She nearly died once, actually, when they had no water anymore in the desert of Gobi. All her mechanics left. All the men gave up. Yeah, listen to it. Exactly. Yeah, that's the moment the women are. Yeah, correct. But one stayed with her later husband. It was clear. I mean, when you manage to be together in these difficult situations, then it's clear that you marry, isn't it? This actually is the first race. And if you have a look here, there's a starting number on that car. Paris-Rouen, that is the official first race we had. It was not a real race. As you can see, there were still other vehicles, pedestrians. Nobody really seems very interested in this racing car, actually, if you have a proper look at it. And the important thing about it was the concepts of of mobility we already had, because it was not only the steam cars, the petrol cars or diesel cars, it was also electrical cars which tried to compete, and many different other concepts which didn't make it in the future, but that there was an electrical car also to propose for the start for this race is interesting, isn't it? I mean, it is the first race, and they already think so much further. It was not the time for electrical cars, it is now, but it wasn't that time. Albert Lemaitre won this race on a Peugeot, and as I'm Mercedes ambassador, it was a Daimler license engine. I have to mention that. Yeah. To come to racing just a little bit short, because I'm really interested in history, I have to say. When I look at this, you see how quick the development already is. In 1898, you have one of the first race cars from Daimler, and already 3 years later, the car looks completely different. You see some aerodynamic parts, you see it's lower, it's a longer wheelbase. They really play with materials. They change the coolers to gain weight, to save weight, to drive with less fluids in the car, to save another amount of weight. They used a new material which was only known for industrial production at 1900, aluminium, and they used magnesium, which was a combination of aluminium and magnesium. So high-class developments that time. Then, because before we come to the Formula One races, there were many races in between. For example, the Gordon Bennett races for 5 years. It was regulations which were the base for later GP Grand Prix, Formula One rules. And racing was all about fitting to the demands of the society. The society more or less gave the regulations if they were allowed to drive bigger engines, smaller engines, more consumption, less consumption, and the most interesting part of this is that this guy, Genaski, yeah, that looks funny, isn't it? But he said... normally he's more in the car, of course. I couldn't find that picture. So he had a speed record already with an electric engine with 105 kilometers per hour, which is, how many miles is that? I don't know. I should have done that before. 60, whatever miles. With an electric engine in 1899, that is extraordinary. And there was a lot of electric racing going on, not racing, but speed records going on at that time. And then, of course, it's for us, the Americans, the pendant is the IndyCar. Of course, for us in Europe or the other world is Formula One. And what you see is a silver arrow. I had the chance to drive one, which was a pure pleasure. Why? Because it's only 750 kilos, and that meant for the engineers, for the very first time, there was a maximum weight. Normally, it was a minimum weight. Nobody cared about the weight. Everybody did his own thing. But suddenly, it was 750, the maximum weight. That is the legend of the silver arrows. They had to take the paint off to make that possible, and the aluminium came through, so the silver arrow legend was born. And this 750 kilo, they drove with 600 horsepower. These engines, cannot see it from here, are really huge and big. And I had the big honor to drive one up the hill. It is spectacular. It is absolutely spectacular because you have this huge power unit in front of you. You sit more or less on the rear wheels. Everything is, depending on the model you drive, you have the brake on the right and the acceleration in the left, in the middle. And it's really not easy. I nearly made a mistake. And when I came up this hill race, I said, oh, wow, that was a difficult situation. I had to drift and ring. And they were not happy with me because the car was 25 million. I didn't know that before, I have to say. So not only when we talk about developments in motorsport, we not only talk about the techniques in the cars. It's the racetracks, it's the safety, it's everything. And it's going on and on and on and on, and it will never, ever stop. Nowadays, you could say most of the tracks are boring. I love the American racetracks. They are more made for heroes, yeah. Not so safe, but I like that because then if you miss the break and you have another 200 meters to go, well, then it's not, we can, And at this time, it was, of course, too dangerous. I mean, as you can see on the right picture, they were fighting. They were hitting each other with these slim tires, with these bad tracks. We have to remember that at that time, they were not racing on asphalt. It was asphalt with a little bit of gravel or dirty asphalt, something like that. That's the reason why you always see saw them so dirty at that time. And even the pit stops, if you can see that, they were no pit walls. They had knickerbockers. I mean, very stylish, I have to say. Very stylish compared to today. But it's not. Nobody really thinks about security. Let's face it. They take the petrol in the car without any security. And if you see this thing here, just remind it, because I want to show you a little film. And this will play a role in this little film. If you have a look at this nowadays, it's completely different. It's a ballet. If it comes to pit stop, they work on it every day. In DTM, for example, that is the German Touring Car Championship, but it's an international one. It's not worldwide, but European-wide at the moment. So they measured the pulse. The pulse of the pit crew is much higher than the pulse of the driver, and the driver is already. It's already a difficult situation to break on the point, on the spot. And they do it as a ballet. And for example, the pit crews nowadays, they are 3, 4, 5 times per week. They go to the gym in the morning during their normal working hours. They do the pit stops 3, 4, 5 days per week, every day. The only possibility to do it that quickly. And I brought something, it's a comparison. A little bit unfair, I have to say, because it's from IndyCar, where you have restricted personnel at the pit stop and the Formula One. But it shows you very clearly what is the difference then and now. And you can imagine that every 10th you find in a pit stop,
but Holland comes
you have
in for
to work
a pit
hard
stop.
for.
Time to refuel and change tires. Lou Moore himself changes the tires. Only 4 crew members, including the driver, are allowed to work on the car. It's a tense time. Holland stays in his seat, anxious to get away. Let's watch.
Yeah, he's anxious to get away. I don't know why, but he's anxious to get away because it's so quick. You see already a development on these wheels because they have a central lock. That was already something. You have to open it with a hammer. Have a look at old race cars, you see these big central locks. The guy who's cleaning the screen is, incredible. He's wiping. Is it still like this in IndyCar? Asking our American guests.
The tires are changed at last. A crewman polishes the windshield as Holland moves away just 67 seconds after he stopped.
Just 57 seconds. That was quick that time. That was really good. Have a look, for example, on that detail here. The guy, you remember the piece I pay attention to? It's still that way that they lift up the cars like that. But it's completely different from what they did in the 50s, of course. It's a little different, isn't it? Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's really teamwork. I mean, Ferrari is probably a bad example because they lost tires so often in the past. But it is really different. To give you a very visible example, I put the picture of a steering wheel into it. You have three instruments you have to watch. It's the water temperature, the pressure, and the revs. That's all. I mean, I can understand that because it was so much hard work, no power steering or something, to drive those cars. But if you compare it to today, and this is already 2014, is already again changed, you can imagine that driving nowadays is completely different, and that's exactly what it is. You concentrated, even in my early times, we just had to concentrate on the driving. We had two knobs, on the steering wheel. It was one for the drinking bottle and one for the radio. Drinking bottle never worked, so it was in the end one knob you had. You could change a little bit and see the pages. This is the pages where you get all the information. In the middle, the dashboard. This we could do as well, but in reality, it was not really needed. Now, to take the example with the radio, in Formula One, they have already two knobs only for the radio. One to talk to your engineer or to talk to the engineer, and the other, if you're in a difficult situation, you just press the button to say, yes, I heard your message. That's all. And then you can change differentials 3 times in the corner. You can do all the engine settings, everything. And the point is, nowadays, before you sit in your actual race car, and it's not only in Formula One, you have to learn your steering wheel first. Because you just cannot just go and drive. Even in a GT3 car or whatever you drive, first lesson is your steering wheel. And only when you know all the combinations of buttons you can press and what you can do with it, you are more or less able to drive the car. So that is very different. And that's the reason why nowadays they have to spend so many hours in the simulator. It's really different from what we had. We had a little bit, to learn the tracks, we did a little bit of, how do you call that, e-sport, e-racing, like that on the computer, and then to check out the tracks, but this is completely different. They have a lot of data they get, and a lot of information they get out of the driving of the drivers, and the drivers can squeeze out of the simulator driving big, huge screens, and as you can see this is from Red Bull, under the Formula One, under the chassis. You have the original chassis, the original steering wheel and pedals and everything. And there is this construction which come on, man, English, which makes it possible to really feel the track, and it's so real, it's unbelievable. Even the braking pressure, everything is external. The braking, the original brakes, they work with. So these young drivers, and also the experienced ones, they sit for weeks in the simulator, with exceptions, because there is a illness actually called the simulator sickness, and some of them just can't do it. That was new for me. I didn't know that before. Michael Schumacher, for example, suffered of that, what I learned. So it's very clear when the change goes so quick. In motorsport, we are very much used to live with the change because it's everywhere and always. I'm not talking only about the developments, the technical, but also for us personal. A sponsor is quitting. You go to a complete different series in a complete different part in the world. Try to follow your passion. You have to follow the passion, meaning you have to go everywhere and be open for everything. The problem is, of course, that we love it like it is and we hate it like it is. It's a very ambivalent, the whole thing, especially in our working world when it goes so quickly and we have to adapt so quickly. And we don't want to just stop and say, leave it like it is, because that's not possible, because it's so much influence and so much energy from outside. So what can we do? It is really important that you judge the change positive and that you live it. I mean, for me, I can say, for me personally, it was always positive. Even when for some weeks it was negative, something positive came out of it. When I lost a job, I lost a sponsor, the series ended, whatever. I had the motivation to really change. So I came from the track racing, for example, made the complete change to the rally, which was a big risk. as I did not grow up in rallying, and then changed to truck racing, and which is completely different as well, as you can imagine, with 7,000 Newton meters and 1,500 horsepowers, and it is complete different racing, as you can imagine. And then Rallley Dakar, complete different thing as well. So that was my key to adapt and to love and live the change, to stay in my sport for over 30 years as a professional. So I saw the chances, and for you it's really, or for not for you, but for the customers, for everybody of us, it's always first to overcome fear, because of course we have fear when things change so quickly, when we feel not prepared, and that's the second key, be prepared for change. This cogwheel, I hope I translated that correct, this cogwheel meshing, yeah? We have to work together. That's one of the key points, of course. When you have a team, talking about team building a little bit, just a little bit, because you have your team building things this afternoon, then of course you have to delegate, you have to find who's the best in which position, because sometimes you yourself see yourself in a position which is not good for you, and your boss or your team colleagues know better. And you follow, me for example, I studied chemistry. I worked in chemistry very shortly before I had the chance to become a professional race car driver, and then I found out I'm better in, maybe also I can do communication marketing. I worked in this position for teams. So it's, you really have to find your way. It's not always what you are in the beginning, what you are in the end or during your life. In the end, it's all in a team that you pull together, that you work together and overcome also, things like if you don't like each other, if you just don't like the work of the other person, that is a difficult situation. And then only the team can solve that, because the team will suffer if there are two who do not work together. For me, there's another point which is absolutely important in a team and which was always important for my life and my motorsport life, and that is inspiration. It's not that you all have to inspire everybody, but you have to get inspired, inspire everybody. You have to get inspired. That is exactly the point. And I was in the lucky position that I always had some people who inspired me a lot. And with this, I could move forward, because then you start thinking about your own position, about your own future, the planning is easier. You need some inspiration. If there's a team without any inspiration, it's really tough, because then it's only work. When I talk about team, preparing your team building in the afternoon, there is, of course, the central team in a race car, talking about Rallley Dakar. I didn't mention that before. My topic will be Rallley Dakar, because I did it, by the way, 13 times, not 9 times. A little bit of a difference, but in different positions. So I was not always the driver. I did it as a team manager and in a press cars and stuff like that. So I think I know it from every perspective, but the place I love to be in is in a race car, of course. So when I am in the race car, I'm not alone. On the track, yes, but not in rally and off-road rally. I am with my co-driver. And I want to talk a little bit about trust later, because this is more or less the key to success in off-road racing, and experience, of course, and talent, and money. Okay, it's more than only trust, but trust is very, very important. So what do we have? We have a road book which shows us a little bit where to drive. Well, that sounds easy, is difficult, because it's a lot of off-road. So when you're on the piste, it's easy. You can look with 4 eyes and anticipate a little bit if it's dangerous or not. But if you are in the dunes, for example, it tells you drive on cap 110, use your compass more or less. And that's difficult, because who did drive in the dunes already? Some of you maybe, one. So you know that it's not a straight line, your compass course. You go to the left, to the right. Even on the tracks, you sometimes arrive to a place where you have, for example, compass 100 degrees, but you can also do 103 or 89 or 98 or whatever, and it all looks the same. And you don't know if you're on the right track. That makes it a little bit dangerous. And I had this situation also. We arrived at a deep ditch, and I only saw it, or we both only saw it before, because there had been an accident before. We thought we are on the right track. out of 5, but we were on the wrong one. And then there is no Achtung, Achtung, there is no danger, danger in the road book, meaning telling you that be careful, there is something. So if you then come full speed, and the off-road cars nowadays go over 200 kilometers per hour off-road, and you don't know what to expect. So you can imagine that is thrilling. Adrenaline, exactly. Then it can be difficult. The modern Dakar car is, of course, a pure prototype. We are not talking about going on a long, adventurous travel or something. We're talking about prototype sport. And what you see here is, of course, we don't use the pedal shift for shifting gears. We still do it sequential because it's more reliable. It's 9,000 kilometers, so it's really reliability is one of the key points to success. You have the trip masters over there. Maybe I tried to show it here. Can you see it? Wait. You see these easy trip masters is a help for the co-driver, meaning he or she can see where am I compared to the road book. It's a little bit difficult. They always have to adapt because when you're so much in the air, you can remember that you have a lot of wheel spin in the air, so the trip masters are not always 100%. So when it says in 200 meters there's a danger, it can be 180 or 210. You never know. He's checking the tire pressure, and we have some GPS systems which we are not allowed to use. So, nevertheless, we have them double because in the Dakar Rally you have to find some waypoints, and for the waypoints the GPS is opening up. But this is experience, and my co-driver was much more experienced. I told you it was my first championship, my first World Championship race, so I was lucky to listen to her. What do we have else? We have the race trucks. The race trucks following us, they have their own class where they go for win. In this Rallley Dakar, you have the motorcycle driver, the trucks and the cars. And the race truck fast assistant cars are quick trucks. They really drive a big speed. They have to, because they have to get as close to you in the race to help you, because this is allowed. Competitors are allowed to help each other, but they are not allowed, for example, to come into the track with a service truck, then you're out of race. So every motorcycle team, car team, even the truck teams have their own fast assistant trucks. And they don't go slow, though they go slower than this guy here. He was the winner of the Dakar, of one of the Dakars. And this is a bad video quality, sorry. Yeah, you see I told you the South American fans are very much into it. I'm always wondering, actually, how do they know that there is a big jump or something, but they find it. They are everywhere, and it's just incredible as we get our road books only the evening before, but they follow the rally a little bit, they see the dust, and they go there, they go off-road there, very enthusiastic. I love that, I have to show you again. It's a Kamaz. Kamaz is one of the most successful truck teams in the Dakar. It's a Russian team, very strict. When they have their team photos, they're all like in one row, the arms in one row, so super, super prepared. I have to say that. It's not a coincidence, the success. They are very, very, very prepared. They have their own junior teams where they build up the drivers. They have their own academies to do that. They have their all-year workshops on the car, do all the rallies in preparation. So there is a reason why they are so successful. You need good drivers in this car, in these trucks, as well as you always or very often have a situation like that. It's towing. And actually, I would say in 31 years of racing, it was my worst night and situation I ever spent in a racing car. In the night, in Mauritania, Dakar used to be in Africa all the years before it came to South America in 2009. You are behind a short rope because of the dunes. You cannot drive with a long rope. You don't have, if you're unlucky, I was unlucky, you don't have power steering anymore or power braking. So the co-driver is reading the notes, the few notes you have, though it's you don't see anything. And you completely depend talking about trust again, about what the guy's doing. And they drove, that time, they drove 160 as well, with you on the rope, on the back, on the off-road tracks. So that it was, I really don't have to do that again. It was in the night. We survived. It's really, like I see that, we made it to the bivouac and we could continue. So I'm happy I had this guy, but it's nothing I want to experience again. And to just get the confirmation of that feeling, a good friend of mine who was doing the Dakar, he had exactly the accident I was fearing. He rolled behind the race truck and the race truck driver didn't feel it. So he was towing this poor guy on the roof somewhere, and they were jumping and terrible. But nothing happened, with the consequence that the driver of the car, which was towed, next year he was driving a race truck. That is learning. Yeah, and you look like that then afterwards. I mean, it's really demanding, the Dakar. You lose weight, which is one of the reasons I have to do the Dakar again, very easily. And it's really demanding because you have to concentrate for hours and hours and hours. And that's why it is the toughest race in the world. Though in America you have this wonderful Bajas, Baja 500, Baja 1000, great races, completely different, but they do it 1,000 miles in a row, quickly as possible, and the Dakar normally is 2 weeks. In former days it was 3 weeks. So if you can imagine that for success you need a good communication within the team. And as I told you, the key team is it's like you're married to this person, because you spend so many hours and so many hours on high adrenaline with this person on the co-driver's seat. You have to you have to have a good communication about everything, professional, everything. Otherwise, it's really getting difficult. And I brought you something, again, sorry for the quality, from the World Rally Car Championship. Colin Mcrae, one of my heroes, he died, unfortunately, in a helicopter crash. He is talking to his co-driver, and just for your explanation, it is this quick communication we learn and we do in a team. We want to come to a point. I think it's this thing. Yeah. We want to come to the point, and we want to no, it's not. We want to come to the point, and we want to come to the point quickly. When we need quick solutions, or for quick solutions, you need very good communications, as you can imagine. Just for your explanation, it is when you do the rally, you have you know exactly what's coming. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 is flat out. 1 is a hairpin, and everything in between. And I love Colin Mcrae, because if you look at this video, you find out that he's more or less everywhere 6. And the moment the co-driver starts talking about something, you know something is going on. But already in the corner, he's talking about 6 again.
30. Long 6 left. Into 6 right, opens over crest, 50. 6 right, into 6 right, 50. 6 right opens, very long. Into clear long crest and slow 5 right, slippy exit. 6 right opens over crest, into right turns the 4 cut, into 3 left, that's open, slippy. And 6 right into 6 left opens, 50.
You see, it's all about timing. Huh? In this, that's why the co-drivers and the drivers drive so long together, because the co-driver knows exactly what mood his driver is in, what timing he needs. I, for example, could not listen when I'm fighting. You know, I could not listen to the next one. I needed just behind the corner, for example. I'm too slow for that kind of communication. And sometimes communication doesn't really work. And this is, again, a video I found in the internet. It's unfortunately a Mercedes-Benz prototype. You will say, well, but it's, again, just the iPhone quality from a Spectator. That is Rallley Dakar again. So now the guy is running. That is also the case. They're very helpful. They're always there. Something happens. They try to put the car back on the 4 wheels. Not thinking maybe that the ditch is still there, and that there are others to come, and that there is maybe competition in who's flying more far. Here we are. A hammer, by the way. I love this really because nothing happened. They are the cars are very, very strong. They're differently done prototypes than what you use on the racetrack, because they really have to be there. The cage has to be there when there is a heavy, heavy, heavy impact. So normally nothing happens. I never rolled on a racetrack. I rolled 3 times, 2 times into a river, luckily enough, on all 4 wheels. Since I did rally and rallycross, and off-road rally, so there is a higher risk. And so, of course, the cars are differently prepared. Normally, a big crash looks big, but it doesn't have a big impact because all the important parts, like the coolers, everything, are built very much back. So when you see all these parts flying, it's just parts flying normally. And the cage is okay and everything else is okay, and then you continue. That is the rule of the Dakar. As long as 3 tires are rolling, you go. I think the Hammer, the second car we saw, he still continued, but unfortunately the Mercedes was out. I was not driving, huh? It was an Argentinian guy. So you can imagine that the crisis is the normal state at the Dakar. You have situations like that. You fly over dune because you can't get up. You have to do it with speed. You fly over it. You don't know where you land, more or less. That was the Mercedes. It was an Argentinian prototype. Quite ugly, I have to say. I shouldn't have mentioned that it's a Mercedes because it's so ugly. You don't see anything in the dunes because you always have the sand on your windscreen. You never know what is behind the dune. You often have to get out of the car, though I have to say normally you send the co-driver out of the car when you're stuck. You have a lifters in the car, which makes it easier, but nevertheless, very many times you have to push as well. That is, for example, a kind of accident we had. And that is, when we talk about success, is not a coincidence. This car is exactly prepared, like I said. It's very short in the front, so when you come down the dunes and you're stuck into the ground, it doesn't hurt anything, as all the vital parts for the engine are far back. This is all carbon. You know, windscreen doesn't matter. We have our goggles in the car, so if we drive without windscreen, we drive without windscreen and go. And this guy, he finished 3rd in the Dakar. It's not too bad, huh? After that accident, and it was a heavy shunt. This is actually more bad, more shitty situation. Please allow me to say it like that, because it is a service truck. I did this picture myself when we were still in Africa, because the service trucks, they carry the mechanics, they carry the tires, they carry everything. So logistic is a very key part of success in the Rallye Dakar. What do I do if I miss my spare parts, my tires, my everything? Where do I get them from? Do I from the beginning plan with different service trucks, one for every car? Things like that developed over the years, of course, and you can always do better. That is clear. And to finish the Dakar with all the cars you have, that is one of the biggest goals for all the teams, because only 40% really make it to the finish. This is a situation where even I would say, that's over now. Hopefully it was good insured, though I have to say I don't think any insurer does Dakar anymore, as I know. So to bring it to the point, it's no sign of weakness, it's a sign of strength to solve them. We all have our problems, and that is coming back to your business. It's never, the normal work life is never without problems, even not the normal private life. We always have our problems. It's the question, how do we deal with it? Do we take a positive attitude and say fail is a matter of opinion? That is from a colleague of mine who said that. Do we learn something out of the situation and try to do better the next time? And does the team accept that Fehler? Fails. That failure is possible. Thank you very much. Like I did now on this stage. Does the team accept that, and does the team work together in trust to solve these problems as we all have them? There is no way to have a life without problems. So, finally, success is no coincidence. As you can see, it's a lot of preparation. And to show you what I was talking about, this is the final film. It is from the Dakar 2009, when we all went first time to South America. Nobody knew what to expect, and it was really surprising that there were millions and millions of people, that everything was completely different like in Africa, but nevertheless very, very tough. Different categories, cars, motorcycles, completely crazy, these guys, and trucks. In the Andes, so you can imagine when you spin there, you have the mountains on the one, and it's going down pretty much on the other side. It's not so easy. A factory driver from Volkswagen hit another driver in the dunes, because whoever knows what it is, it's a kind of surfing, and at a point you can steer whatever direction you want. You just surf down the wave. Another example for our cars, which are very, very heavy. Also, he finished Robbie Gordon in his Hummer from America. He finished third as well after this roll he did. Talking about change, when I came from the racetrack, I always only saw the hotel and the racetrack, and I only later in my career I tried to stay one day or two to experience where have I been the whole weekend. But that was one of the most wonderful input into my life, that I saw countries like Mali and the whole of South America, Paraguay, everywhere, Mauritania, Guinea, Burkina Faso, wherever. We went everywhere, and this would never happen to my life if I would not have had to change to another category, which I learned about myself, that I love to travel with my backpack and go everywhere with my tent. And that what motorsport was giving to me in a very competitive environment, of course, in this case. And you don't have so many spectators in Africa, so that was a new experience as well. All these enthusiasm, people who told us, we don't go for our job today, our boss will, be not happy with that, but we don't care, we want to see Dakar, and we help, and
Grand misère.
There's a lot of steam spirit between the amateurs. I mean, the factory drivers, they don't stop. They just don't stop for anything. But the amateur drivers help each other, really help each other. And it's really like that. There is a race god somewhere. If you help somebody, you can be sure 2 days later the teammate helps you or something like that. Always happens. The factory drivers, they fight for seconds and minutes. So that is not really possible. Also something I have to learn, that sometimes it's okay to lose a minute to help somebody, because maybe you're in the same situation. And the motorcycle drivers, you can imagine, the amateurs, I mean, the factory teams are super effective and everything is planned. But the motorcycle drivers, they have to decide, the amateurs, do I bring 5 more panties, underwear, fresh socks, or do I put 2 more liters of oil in my little pack I have? What do they go for? The oil, exactly. Very good spirit here. All the others in the bivouac don't like that position after half of the rally. And they sit very alone in the bivouac bed. And that's what we are going for. I mean, start and finish. I always say the goal, the first goal must be at the Dakar with the 40% only finishing the race, to do this stage twice, at the beginning and in the end. And if you then have a medal or this famous Dakar Touareg in your hand, in bronze or silver or gold, then everything went well. And the success is, of course, incredible. And this feeling when you did it. So, thank you very much for listening. It's exactly what I want to do again next January. I try hard. Cross your fingers for me. I really want to finish that race again.